Before Simon Cowell ever pressed a buzzer or wiped a tear from his eyes, a quiet Filipino violinist stood alone on the biggest stage in the world, holding a song that once played as the Titanic sank into the ocean. What happened next shocked the judges, silenced the audience, and broke a man known for never breaking down. If stories of raw talent, faith, and miracles move you, make sure you subscribe now, because this performance will stay with you long after the final note fades. The lights inside the auditorium were bright, but the man standing at the center of the stage seemed almost invisible at first. He was not wearing anything flashy, no dramatic costume, no sparkling jacket, no attempt to demand attention. He stood quietly, holding a violin that looked old, worn, and deeply personal. His name was Elijah Cruz, a Filipino violinist from a small coastal town where music was not a luxury, but a language of survival. The audience barely knew what to expect. In a competition known for explosive acts and jaw-dropping performances, a solo violinist felt like a risk. But sometimes, the quietest beginnings carry the loudest truths. Elijah had traveled more than 8,000 miles to reach that stage. He grew up in a modest home built from concrete blocks and patched wood, just a few streets away from the sea. His father was a fisherman who left before sunrise and returned after sunset, often with hands cracked from salt and rope. His mother sang hymns while cooking, her voice filling the house with comfort even when money was scarce. Music was never planned as a career. It was something that lived between moments, during brownouts, during storms, during nights when the radio was the only escape. The violin entered Elijah's life by accident. After a powerful typhoon destroyed several homes in his town, a relief group arrived with food, clothes, and donated items. Among them was an old violin, missing one string, placed in a box of random objects. No one wanted it. Elijah picked it up out of curiosity. He was 12 years old. He had never touched a violin before. But the moment he dragged the bow across the strings, something shifted inside him. The sound was rough, broken, imperfect, but it spoke. It felt like the ocean crying, like prayers without words. There was no money for lessons. Elijah taught himself by watching old videos whenever the internet worked and listening closely to church musicians. He practiced late at night so he wouldn't disturb his siblings. Sometimes his fingers bled. Sometimes neighbors complained. But he kept playing. Music became his refuge when his father's boat capsized during a storm and never returned. The loss shattered the family. Silence filled the house where laughter once lived. Elijah stopped speaking much after that, but his violin began to speak for him. Years later, when he decided to audition for the show, people told him it was impossible. He didn't fit the mold. He didn't sing. He didn't dance. He didn't have a sob story he wanted to sell. But he carried something else. He carried a song that had followed him through grief, faith, and survival. "Nearer My God to Thee" was a hymn his mother sang during his father's funeral. It was the same hymn said to be played as the Titanic sank. For Elijah, it was not just music. It was memory. It was loss. It was hope reaching upward when everything else falls away. As Elijah faced the judges, Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, the familiar look of skepticism on his face. He had heard thousands of auditions. He had seen tears, tricks, and talent. A violinist playing a hymn did not sound like something that would surprise him. When Simon asked why Elijah chose that song, Elijah paused. His voice trembled as he explained its meaning, but he did not beg for sympathy. He simply said it was the song that helped him survive. The moment Elijah lifted his bow, the room changed. The first note was soft, almost fragile, as if testing the air. Conversation stopped. The audience leaned forward. The melody unfolded slowly, carefully, each note hanging like a question. The violin did not shout. It whispered. It told a story of standing alone in the dark, of calling out to something higher when no one else answers. Halfway through the performance, something unexpected happened. Elijah closed his eyes, and the tempo shifted. The hymn transformed from gentle sorrow into rising strength. The notes climbed higher, fuller, filled with longing and faith. The camera cut to the judges. One of them had their hand over their mouth. Another wiped away a tear. Simon Cowell stared at the stage, unmoving. Then came the twist no one expected. Elijah lowered the violin slightly and began to hum along with the melody, his voice barely audible but deeply emotional. The combination of violin and voice created a haunting sound that wrapped around the room. It felt personal, intimate, almost like listening to someone pray out loud. The audience was completely silent. As the final notes echoed, Elijah held his bow in the air for a moment longer, letting the sound fade naturally. He opened his eyes, took a breath, and looked up. That was when the camera caught it. Simon Cowell's eyes were wet. He looked down, then back up, visibly struggling to compose himself. This was a man known for sharp words and tough criticism, now unable to speak. When Simon finally talked, his voice cracked. He admitted that the performance reminded him why music matters. Not for charts or fame, but for moments like this. He said he felt transported, not entertained, but moved. He confessed that he never expected to be emotionally shaken by a violinist playing a hymn, but he was wrong. Very wrong. Another judge revealed that Nearer My God to Thee was played at their own family funeral, making the performance hit even harder. The audience erupted into applause, some standing, some crying openly. Elijah stood frozen, overwhelmed, hands shaking. He had come to share a song, not to change a room full of strangers. But that's exactly what happened. Backstage, Elijah broke down. He spoke about how he almost didn't come, how he feared the song was too quiet for such a loud stage. He remembered his mother's voice, his father's absence, the long nights practicing by candlelight. For the first time, he felt seen. The performance went viral overnight. Millions watched. Comments flooded in from people who lost loved ones, from musicians who understood pain, from viewers who had never heard a violin sound like that before. The song climbed charts, not because it was trendy, but because it was honest. But the biggest twist came later. Elijah received a message from a retired Titanic historian who thanked him for honoring the hymn in a way that reminded people of its meaning, not its myth. Elijah also learned that his father used to hum that same hymn while fishing, something his mother never told him until after the audition aired. The song had followed him his entire life without him realizing it. Simon Cowell later called it one of the most spiritually moving auditions he had ever witnessed. Not because of technique alone, but because of truth. Because of restraint. Because of courage to stand quietly and let music do the talking. Elijah did not win the competition that season. But he gained something far greater. A global audience. A recording deal. Invitations to perform in churches, halls, and memorial events across the world. His violin, once broken and donated, now rests beside him as a symbol of where he came from. And every time he plays Nearer My God to Thee, he closes his eyes and imagines the sea, the stars, and a father listening somewhere beyond the noise of the world.